So thank you all so much for being here with us today. It is our pleasure to have you participating in this workshop series on how to write a grant proposal in the agricultural field. This series has been divided into 4 sessions. This is our last session of the 4. And hopefully today we're gonna bring it home and conclude, our series, making sure that we have covered all the areas that we have, indicated that we will cover. Please don't use the annotation option and the whiteboard option. This is a distraction. And if you are just experimenting with Zoom, probably this is a place where probably we should not be messing up with because it's gonna distract others while we present. I personally try to avoid that, so I will be grateful if you kindly do so too. So today our session is the 4th. It's gonna be devoted for submission, review, contracting, and getting funded. This is as we said, the final station. We started with the first session on call selection and proposal alignment. The second session was on writing a compelling research section. The third was on preparing a well-calculated budget and Gantt chart and project management. So it was one of the key steps in this journey. And today we're gonna try to conclude all the steps and making sure that we covered all the areas. We'll talk about the submission, the review process, if you get a chance to do a review of your proposal, and then contracting and getting funded. Just a quick review of the components of the previous sessions if you haven't had the chance to be with us. Just the titles that we have covered. We started with why we should apply for grants, how we should smartly select the call that we are gonna apply for, and then the proposal alignment and how to make your proposal perfectly aligned with the grant call that you have chosen for your application. The second session, we talked about how to write a good research background, how to identify the knowledge gaps, and then how to use them or transform them into research objectives, and how to put those research objectives in details in the research approach section. We talked about in the research approach section that we will refer to what exactly we're going to do, who's going to do it, and what is the infrastructure or the instruments. And in this section we introduce the components or the parts or the instruments that we will need funding to buy or to establish. And it was, as we said, this was a very good introduction to the budget, where you list all the items that you are seeking funding for. You categorize them and you place them in the appropriate category. And then we talked about the pricing and all the related components. Then we talked about the Gantt chart. What is the Gantt chart and how we appropriately develop it, and how we use the Gantt chart to prepare the project management plan, and how we should keep a bird's eye view while we prepare the Gantt chart and the project management plan, because these are the components that show reviewers that you actually have a very good understanding of what you are proposing to do. Today we're gonna add a little bit of component before the submission. We're gonna talk about the project outcomes and impacts. Then we're gonna talk about the submission and the review process, and then the contracting and getting funded stage. Particularly, we're gonna break these down into smaller topics that we will need to cover. So when we talk about the project outcomes, we're gonna cover the tangible outcomes, the publication outcomes, and then the career development component of the outcomes. So when we write the outcomes, we need these outcomes to seem inspiring or to be inspiring to reviewers. We want the reviewers when they read the outcomes to get inspired and to say, oh my God, we cannot wait to get these outcomes come true. So you want to create that positive attitude with the reviewers. And I'm not sure if maybe we have missed that. Please, if you have not done so already, please write your name, your email address, your institution in the chat section, all in one message for us, in order for us to process your participation and to send you the participation certificate. Thank you so much for doing so, and my apologies for not mentioning that at the beginning of the session. So please do so while you remember it, for us to be able to process your certificate and to your participation and to issue you a certificate. Your name, please, your email address, and your affiliation, all in one message, because it's going to be difficult for us to go back and match names and emails and affiliations. So please, all three together: name, email address, and affiliation, in the same message in the chat section. Thank you so much, and my apologies again for not mentioning that earlier at the beginning of the section. Of the session. So back to writing inspiring project outcomes. You want to create that positive attitude. You want that excitement. You want to create excitement on the reviewer's attitude to make them, get inspired to see these outcomes come true. And let's talk a little bit more about that. So when we talk about, when you write the outcomes, the project outcomes, you have to be very specific. You need to list specific expected project outcomes with specific items. We could start with the tangible products. These are things that are physical, that people can see, touch, use. So something like a know-how or a patent that you could achieve, maybe product or products, depending on the size of your project, or maybe a prototype. So you take an idea and you advance it to a prototype, or maybe advance that to an actual product. Sometimes we don't think of establishing state-of-the-art facility as a tangible product, even if it is something that people can find somewhere else in the world. It doesn't have to be the first of its kind all over the world. Being the first of its kind within your institution is much enough to justify that. So don't shy from listing establishing new facilities, especially if they are advanced, as a tangible product or outcome. The instruments, if you're going to buy an instrument through your project, and this instrument is not available for you and your colleagues at your institution, probably making that instrument available, even if you're not going to invent it, even if you're going to buy it, that's very important too. So it is significant enough for you to list. If you're going to establish some infrastructure, it is also important to list that in the outputs. So these are the kinds of things that you should consider putting there. And if there is something else that you think is considered tangible output, please put it there. So don't underestimate your project. If you yourself underestimate your project, probably no one else is gonna appropriately estimate it. So list them there. List them there. The other category is the publication, and usually when people hear the word publication, the first thing they think about is the international publication or the journal articles. which is correct. However, this is not the only type of publication that you should try to achieve through your project. Most of the funding agencies would look for master thesis, master dissertation or PhD thesis to be produced through the project. So funding or getting master students involved or PhD students involved, or even if you get like a graduation project for an undergraduate student, and I think I will add that here too. Even if you get an undergraduate student to do a graduation project, this is something I think is key component that you should include too in your publication list. There are more types of publication that we should consider too, like the extension documents, documents that you produce for applicators in the field. These are very, very important type of publication too, because not only they are some sort of publication, but also they allow you to take the project outcomes and outputs and pass them to the field where they should be applied. Another key component which people typically tend to overlook is the stakeholder summaries. And usually scientists tend to blame policymakers for not taking their input when they make decisions, which is something that we actually have. We actually, I think, share some responsibilities in, because if we don't inform stakeholders and policymakers about the outputs of our projects, we're not giving them the support that they need to have. So it is very good to write stakeholder summaries using layman language, some very simple language that probably appeal to someone who's taking decisions and making policies. This is very important, especially in areas where stakeholders are not well informed about. I'll give you an example of from my own research area. I work on air pollution impacts on crop productivity. Specifically, I look into ozone air pollution, and this is one of the areas that even scientists in the field of crop science are not familiar with. So when we talk about the policymakers, we would expect them not to be aware of it at all. And when it is something that is actually have a huge impact on the crop production, that means we have responsibilities to inform them and to share these information with the stakeholders and policymakers. So this is our responsibility, and I think, or at least this is our share in this regard. So writing stakeholders summaries and policymaker summaries is one of the smart components that we should actually include in our expected project outputs. There is also the public summary. Here you're moving more and more away from the technical language. So even for policymakers, you could still, when writing to the Minister of Agriculture, you still can include some technical terminology there. But when writing to the public, probably you should use as simple language as possible and try to appeal to their interests and their needs more than you do with policy and stakeholder makers. So including these three components actually sends a very good message to reviewers that you're not confining yourself just into your lab and your science, but you show that you actually are open to the society and you're actually putting the science in the service of society, all the way from technical applicators with the extension documents to stakeholders and policymakers with their summaries, and also to the public summary. These public summaries could be written public summaries. They could be visual public summaries, which is more preferable over the text, especially in developing countries where large proportions of the societies have limited access to written material. In this case, probably recording a small video or maybe producing a small interview with a research team, each of them talking about the research, as we said, in layman language, simple terms, and trying to pass the applications to the general public will be a very good idea. Another area where we tend to overlook is the career development of the team members, and this is very key, especially for technology transfer projects, what they call it, reintegration grants for returning scientists from abroad. All the grant proposals that are intended to build capacity in terms of human building capacity. So this is very key, especially in all projects in general, and especially in those types of projects where team building and human capacity building is key. We should not underestimate the team building component. For example, if you are establishing a new team, a multidisciplinary team, or maybe a cluster across different disciplines that is being built for the first time, maybe people working on biotechnology, on the plant pathology department, at the same time in the College of Engineering, especially those who are working on the let's say the industrialization of biotechnology products, and maybe some members from the College of Science. Let's say if you are building a team or a cluster for the first time, putting personnel together in one team for the first time, this is one of the good components that you actually should specify and should list as a project output. Training, and by training here we mean both types of training that the research team members receive to develop their capabilities, and at the same time training that the research team members are going to provide to other people too, like maybe undergraduate students or graduate students, or maybe even colleagues in the same institution, or maybe nationwide. So we should include both. I believe, we should include training component in which the team members are trainees. So that's a training that they receive to develop new skills and new master new techniques and so on. And at the same time, training that they provide to others, passing what they have learned either from the training that they participated in, or from the research and science that they are pursuing. And I would encourage you to include both in your project, to be included. Additionally, if the research team is learning a new technique or a new methodology that they were not aware of before, especially if it is something that is first in college or first in university or first nationwide. Probably these things are also some very key career development outputs that we should list and we should highlight. One more component is the establishment of international connections and collaborations, especially when we get the young, let's say, graduate students, researchers, and scientists in contact with international collaborators for the first time. These are very highly appreciated by reviewers and reviewing committees, because it is some sort of career development, but it has an international taste. So that and it is very key for teams that include young researchers or early career scientists or graduate students or even undergraduate students. And make sure when you propose the international collaboration, make sure you include those early career scientists and researchers in such activities, and to make sure that they are actually gonna have a chance in making the most out of those opportunities. And last but not least, be specific. Avoid vague and general, statements. Focus on specific, measurable benefits only. And as we said before, try as much as you can to make it a list where there are specific items in contrast to general sentences in lengthy paragraphs. So be specific, be specific, and focus on the most clear and measurable outputs. So these are the project outcomes. Some projects will require you to separate the impacts from the outcomes. In this case, by the impacts, they focus more on the financial feasibility and the socio-economic impacts of the project. And here, probably we're talking more about the economics of the project. And if you take a closer look here, you will find that there is a social component to it, not just the economic impact. So we need in this part, we need to discuss the direct benefits of the outputs to the society and the market. We need to provide financial feasibility study for the project to show that actually it is financially appealing. If you remember, in the first session and the second session and the third session, we stressed the importance of the return on investment, because funding agencies are spending money and they will love to have some return on investment in the form of money too, not directly to the funding agency, although sometimes that might happen, but also to the entire society and the market. So this is an example of one of the funding agency. It asks applicants to reflect on why should the STDF choose to invest in your project. So here again, they are using these words in the most clear form they could use. Choose why the funding agency would choose to invest in your project, and they ask for potential investment opportunity for the project's outputs, and also they request the potential interest in the project outputs, even if people are going to wait until the outputs is ready and complete. So here they are asking about the opportunity, investment in the output, if people would like to, you know, fund the production of the output. And here is if we produce the output ourselves, will that output be of interest for the market and the society after it is complete. Again, we also should not overlook the indirect benefits or outputs, benefits of the outputs to the society. So we should also, you know, give a close look and maybe pay significant attention to, you know, the indirect benefits, like the return on investment of raising awareness of the public. And also return on investment of raising awareness of the stakeholders, because, you know, especially if you produce something that's not really of interest to the let's say the private sector or the private market in the society, if you are working on something that would inform the high level or the upper level policy making or decision making level, probably you should include this part and make sure that you cover it appropriately. Any project that you would think of will actually have indirect benefits in the form of raising awareness of the public, and actually will have some return on investment of raising awareness of the stakeholders, especially if you write summaries directed towards, you know, the public and the stakeholders. So if you put these components together, you know, you actually will be delivering a very good and solid project from A to Z, you know, starting from the scratch, taking it all the way up to, you know, informing and helping in shaping the decisions and the policies in your sector, or maybe in your country. Again, we should make sure that we include this sentence or this statement there. We should make sure that we use it. We say, okay, by funding this project, the X funding agency will achieve 1, 2, 3, 4. You would like to have this statement clearly there, at least to guide the reviewer's eyes to where exactly you have listed your outputs. This is one of the keywords that the reviewers will look for when they try to check that mark for the benefits, the indirect benefit, the benefits in general, whether they are direct or indirect. So make sure you include this sentence there as a keyword to guide them. So any question about this this part of the session? Any question or comment about this part of the session? I remember you guys, you've been very quiet over the last sessions. I'm not sure if you want to change that today. Today is the last one. Maybe if you have any comments or a couple of questions, we could discuss them. We could discuss them now if you would like to. So any question on or let me rephrase it. Do you guys have any other component that you would suggest to include as one of the outcomes that we have not talked about in this section? Are there any types of direct or indirect components that we have not covered so far that you would like to share with us? That would be great. Hamdi, go ahead. I saw a hand there, but I don't know, maybe you guys changed your mind. Any component that you would like to add to the direct or indirect outputs or outcomes? Okay, well, that means we're ready to go for the next part. So by writing the outcomes and the impacts, that concludes our research proposal. Now we should be ready for the submission, and for the submission stage, we're going to discuss the timing, the importance of using the template, and the importance of reviewing the guidelines for one last time before submitting our proposal. To have a successful submission, we need to take care of these key components. We should avoid submitting the proposal on the due date, because sometimes, or most of the times, the technical issues happen in that very last date. People tend to submit at the due date, which means that the system is going to be loaded or overloaded, and sometimes it drops, and in some cases the system might stop and you may not get an extension. So you should not risk it. You should not risk it. You should aim to submit at least one day before the deadline. And even if something wrong happened, at least you still have one more day. So don't shoot for submitting the proposal in the very last minute. I know proposals that were submitted literally in the very last minute, and they were funded, but it's not wise. It's not wise. It's very risky, especially when the project is prepared by so many people, and you are the person who is in charge of submitting it. It's not nice to to take that risk. Also, if there is a template for the proposal, you actually should make sure that you have used it, and you have used it appropriately. So it is important to take one last look at the template and compare it to actually what you have prepared using the template, making sure that you have not overlooked any of the sections, or maybe you have not by mistake deleted any of the components while writing the grant proposal. So it's your last chance to double check yourself on the template, and if and whether or not you have used it appropriately. Again, it is very important to review the guidelines of the grant proposal submission. And in this case, it helps a lot if you have prepared your own checklist. Some grant proposals, provide you with a pre-prepared checklist, and these are very good ones. But if you don't have one, maybe it is a very good idea to prepare your own. So while reading the guidelines, make your own checklist and increase it and improve it the more you go while writing. And at the end, review the guidelines, review your own checklist, and check your proposal against your own checklist, and see if you actually have met all the criteria. I personally have had some experiences with some bad experiences, unfortunately, for not preparing my own checklist. We had a project. It was an international project that we submitted with colleagues from the USA, and our side of the project had a requirement of getting the what they call it, the budget page, every budget page stamped by the institutions, with the institution's stamp. It was written in a very small font, and it was not included in the funding agency's checklist. And the PI on our side did not check against that. And we submitted our our proposal, and we waited for 9 full months to learn eventually that our submission was not eligible, because it was not actually passed to reviewers because it was lacking those stamps. So it's important to make your own checklist, and to protect yourself. No one is gonna have the same motivation of protecting your effort and your colleagues' effort than you. So even if the funding agency has their own checklist, maybe expand it and make sure that you have every single component that is requested listed there, even the tiny details, that especially if they might disqualify your project. If we take these things into account, probably we will have some successful submission there. After submitting, your proposal is going to be passed to different reviewing committees. Some of them are going to be technical, some of them are going to be financial, some of them might be geared more towards on policy and what exactly matches the policy of the funding agency and delivers the objectives of the funding agency. So let's talk about the review process and how exactly we should navigate this stage. Not every or let me rephrase that. Not every call is gonna select proposals to be reviewed in order to be funded. Some of them will just focus on the proposals that are in a very good shape, and they have minimal, recommendations, so they will be accepted with minimal recommendations. But if the proposal is good, they still want to fund it, but it has some key components that has to be improved. In this case, you receive what they call conditionally accepted. In this case, you're not going to be finally accepted unless you meet the conditions. And these conditions are typically in the form of reviewers' comments, things that you need to change, expenses that you will need to reduce, dreamy outputs that you will need to make realistic, and sometimes, objectives that underestimates the capabilities of the research team that you will need to maximize and to polish and glorify. So the reviewers' comments are typically meant to improve your research project. And again, they are meant to make you meet the funding requirements of the funding agency. So they want you to get funded. That's why they provided you with these recommendations. Therefore, we should appreciate the reviews. We should receive them positively, and we should treat them as gifts from reviewers to us to improve our proposal. Be as permissive as possible. Be as appreciative as possible, and accept those reviews as much as you can, because they are conditions. They are conditions for your proposal to be funded. Even if you disagree, try to come up with a smart argument for disagreement. Try to find a way to express what they call a smart disobedient or disobedience. Even if you disagree with reviewers, try to be objective. Try to show appreciation of the comments from the reviewers first, then list or state why you might disagree, and then eventually you have to leave the door open to reviewers, because if this is a condition for the project to be funded, then you give them the 2 points of view. Yes, I understand what you are asking me to do. I appreciate that. However, there might be another way of getting this done, and then you present your point of view, and then you ask the reviewers for their final decision. If they insist on what they want, then they still can say, okay, no, we don't agree with your alternative proposal. We insist of having this done our way. Or they can say, yes, well, this is a good alternative. We have no problem with you using the alternative. So you actually should leave the last word to the reviewers to decide. Think win-win. Reviewers would like to have some impact on the proposal. So don't expect reviewers to say, okay, your proposal is 100% correct. You know, reviewers would love to have contributed to the improvement of your proposal. So think win-win. Try to give them this opportunity. Try to accept as much as you can of their recommendations, as long as they are not contradicting or if they are not counterproductive. So if they are not counterproductive, if they are not going to hinder you, try to accept them as much as you can. And usually when proposals are selected as conditionally accepted, they are selected within the overall budget, which means that actually at that time probably the budget will be decided already. So try to make sure that you make changes within the approved budget to avoid going back and forth, proposing more things and asking for more budget and getting that refused and rejected, and then you get back to your comments and edits and try to meet them within the approved budget. So if you receive some sort of a conditional acceptance status, it's good to inquire about the approved budget to make sure that you are gonna apply the changes within the approved budget. This will help you. This will help you a lot, and will save you time. And I'm speaking from my own experience here, because I didn't know that when selected, then the budget is assigned, and then I made some changes, and I had to go back and forth a couple of times with the reviewing committee before I met their recommendations within the recommended budget. So that's how we navigate the review process. If we get a chance to review or to improve our project, which is typically called, conditionally accepted status. Once we get the final approval, and that moves us to signing the contract, which is the last stage. Do we have any questions on the proposal submission and the review process? Any question or comment on these two stages? Or maybe any experiences that you personally have that you would like to share with us, especially to share with young researchers and young scientists, and maybe graduate students who have not had prior experiences with proposal submission. Please, if you have any that we have not covered, please share them with us. It is a very good learning opportunities for young career scientists. It would be nice to have your input in that too. Any comments? Any question? Any experience that you would like to share with us? We could write those in the chat section, or maybe we could raise our hands and unmute ourselves and share those with the entire team or with the entire group. Okay, you guys insist on being the quietest group I've ever had, which is fine, which is totally fine. Thank you. Let's move on to the last section today, which is, okay, if I receive the final or when I receive the final acceptance, that means I'm moving into the contracting stage. That means we will sign the contract, which is a very important phase that we should think about way ahead of this moment. So before we sign the contract, we need to read the contract, and also we sometime might find some conditions or some terms in the contract that makes us think, oh my, can I reject the contract now? And these are very good questions to ask yourself very early on in the process, which means that we should read the contract as early as we can. And if we can read the contract and have a clear idea about the terms of the contract of a certain call even before we apply to it, that will be even better. And I'll give you an example here. I received funding for a reintegration grant. It's a 3 years commitment, and one of the terms in the contract is that I should not leave the country for more than 3 months total over 3 years, and I should not leave the country for more than a month in any given year of all 3, which means that I cannot even have the 3 months altogether in 1 year. The maximum I can use in 1 year is one month. So if this is something that I cannot fulfill, probably I shouldn't have applied to that grant grant call from the beginning. So this is an example of terms that if you are not aware of, and if you cannot comply with these, there might be some deal breaker terms there. And how can I know about these terms? Well, you could communicate that to the coordinator of the call at the funding agency to ask, okay, what are the terms of the contract? Do you have someone who I can talk to who have received this kind of calls before? And again, please do not use annotation. You know, this is distracting. This is distractive, and this is not good for anyone participating in the session. Thank you. I'm not going to mention the name personally, but please, if you are experimenting with the annotate option, please don't. If you would like to share something with us, maybe we could write that in the chat section, or maybe we could raise our hands to get your valuable insight shared with us as a group. Thank you. Try to contact the funding agency, or maybe try to come in contact with someone who have received the fund before, and ask about if they have, if they could share any certain terms in the contract that you need to be aware of before getting you know, too deep in the process in such a way that it's going to be hard for you to reject the contract. So now what if I have been already selected, finally selected, and when I read the contract, I found some terms that I cannot personally comply with. I know for sure that I will not be able to fulfill or to comply with. What can I do? Can I reject the contract? And this is a question for all of us. I really would love to know your answer to this specific question. So let's use the feedback option. I don't know if we have it activated here. Maybe we don't. Okay, let me see. Okay, no, we don't have it activated here. So the only feedback option that I could receive here, that means chat section. So please, in the chat section, and I please I encourage every single one of us to share their personal opinion on this. So if you have been selected, your project has been selected to get funded, and you received the contract for you to read and to sign, and you found a term or more that you are sure you cannot comply with, will you reject the contract or not? Will you reject the contract? This is my question, and please answer with yes or no in the chat section. Do you personally think that you should reject the contract that far in the process? And again, we are 28 participants, and I really need to have your personal opinion on this. So two is not enough. Please share your insight with me, because this is one of the areas that we actually need to discuss as a group. There is no correct answer here. So I really need your input there, and let's open the discussion. Let's open the discussion around it. Shukran Zaid, Shukran Mariam. Thank you so much, Zaid. Thank you so much, Mariam, for sharing your input. Hamzuli, thank you so much. Fawziya, thank you so much. Please, we're 28. Okay, so we have 3 yeses, 1 no. We have more participants. please share your input in such a way that we have a you know, a collective idea about what people think. If you read the contract and you found a term or more that you are sure you cannot comply with, would you reject the contract, or what would you do? Would you reject the contract? We have 2 yes, 1 no. Anyone else would like to share their input with us? It doesn't have to be a perfect answer, you know. Just give us your best guess. Your best guess, you know, even if you have not been in this situation before. It's your best guess. Thank you, Mariam. Who else? The participation is too low. Let's get a couple more votes before we open this to discussion. This is one of the very critical decisions that the research teams will need to discuss and to think about wisely and carefully. This is one of the questions that I actually don't have a clear answer for. I don't personally have, and usually we discuss that as a group, and we get some rationale for saying yes, some rationale for saying no, and we learn from each other's experiences. At least that's what I had with all the previous groups. I usually get all the participants to share their insight, just at least their vote, at least their yes or no. I don't know why you are not sharing that, honestly. You know, just give us your insight. Give us your insight. This is not an exam. Guys, this is not an exam. This is an experience sharing opportunity. This is an experience sharing opportunity. Just share your insight, yes or no. And if you are for yes, please, if you can share one reason on why you are saying that we should reject the contract, please share that with us. And if you have an experience of your own, please share it with us. I'm going to share some experiences from previous participants with you, but we need to share our own first. We need to share our own first, and then we can discuss what I have learned from the previous groups. Okay, so most of the participants are saying yes, we should reject, except for Mariam. Mariam, would you like to share your opinion why we cannot reject? Because you have the different opinion here. Maybe you can. We all can learn from your insight. Given that most of the people here said yes, they can reject, and you are saying no, we cannot reject. Would you like to unmute yourself and share your insight with us? Why you think we cannot reject? Which means that once we have been selected, we should sign the contract, even if there were some items there that we are sure we will not be able to comply with. Mariam, do you hear me? Mariam, do you hear me? Okay, well, maybe this is your best guess and you don't have a justification for it. But one of the reasons that I have heard from previous I have heard from previous groups that makes it difficult for people to reject the contract after they have been selected is a condition in the guidelines that says if you have been selected, you will accept and sign the contract. Some grants or some calls have that condition clearly stated in the eligibility criteria and the guidelines. In this case, you know from the beginning that once selected, you have to continue. You have to carry on. In this case, it makes it very difficult for the research team to reject. If this is the case, you have to read the contract before submitting your proposal. You have to. This is not an option, because you do not want to read the contract at the end and to find that there are conditions that you are sure you will not be able to comply with, but you also have no option to reject the contract. Some funding agencies would put some penalty on proposals or research teams that have been selected and they elected not to sign the contract. Sometimes you find that people, sometimes people are banned from getting funded by those funding agencies for like 3 years, sometimes forever, sometimes 5 years, as a penalty of not accepting the funds after being selected by the committee. And I've seen those conditions in different calls before. So this case happens where there is a penalty for saying no or rejecting the contract. The alternative is to negotiate, to bring those terms to the attention of the funding agency, to state why you cannot comply with them, and to ask for a waiver from those terms, and leave the decision to the funding agency. So my advice is, if you read the contract and you find something that you are sure you will not be able to comply with, don't reject just a plain rejection. No, bring those to the attention of the funding agency and ask for a discussion meeting about them, and try to alleviate the situation, to come up with a win-win situation. Maybe to find a middle ground between what you can do and what the funding agency is requiring you to do, to find a win-win situation in which you still can sign the contract, but you are not asked by that contract for something that you cannot fulfill, or you cannot commit to, or you cannot comply with. Yes, Zaid, it is considered a conflict of interest if you know that there is something that you cannot comply with and you still sign without bringing that to the attention of the funding agency. So we should or people should bring that to the attention of the funding agency and try to solve this problem. And thank you, Zaid, for sharing your insight. I have a case for such conflict of interest from one of the participants in the previous sessions or the previous series, the previous rounds of this series. It was one of the professors who have been involved in a project of which a patent is expected. And the funding agency was proposing some terms in the contract that contradicts the policy of the hosting institution. So here again, the PI and the research team became aware of a change in the policy of the funding agency that contradicts the policy of the host institution, and they knew for a fact that they will not be able to comply with it. They brought that to the attention of the funding agency, and they had a meeting between the three parties there: the funding agency, the research team, and the leadership of the hosting institution. And they all come to discuss with good faith, and they all came to discuss with the intention of finding a middle ground that make this project happen, and this significant output come true, and at the same time make sure that everyone is winning, and to find a win-win situation, a win-win solution for everyone, and to find a common ground in which they all can meet their objectives, and at the same time they don't break their rules and their commitments to the higher agencies. So this is, yes, we can say no. Yes, we can reject. And the only case where we cannot is when we, from the beginning, commit that we will not say no. So that's the only case in which we cannot reject the contract. It is when we commit from the beginning that by submitting our proposal, we are aware of all the terms and conditions, and we will not say no. We will sign the contract once we are given the opportunity to sign it. And again, in this case, you have to read the contract before submitting, so you don't put yourself, in a bad situation. Will, thank you so much for sharing your feedback and for sharing your insight. I was hoping to get some personal experiences there, so I could share them with future participants, like we shared together now. However, you guys have been one of the most quiet group, if not the quietest group I've ever had so far, which is fine. So the next step is getting funded, and this is the steps of getting funded differ from one institution from another. Some funding agencies will require you to open a certain type of bank accounts. Some funding agencies or some host institutions will have a collective account for research projects that they administer. So this is one of the very diverse areas where the requirements of the funding agencies and the requirements of and the procedures of the host institutions might differ, and in some cases the procedure for different calls coming even from the same funding agency might differ depending on the type of the proposal. For example, if you are receiving funding from a national organization, just to you as a national or a local institution, it might differ from a funding coming from the same agency, but for a bilateral international collaboration the procedures and the requirements there for how to get the fund might significantly differ. In all cases, you will need to comply with the requirements for the funding agency and the host institution. And if there is any conflict of interest there, probably a discussion meeting will be the appropriate solution there. If you see anything that would cause any problems down the road, it is very important to bring that up to the attention of both parties at the beginning, so they could agree on and find the common ground and solve it ahead. So once you start your project and you launch your project, you are good to go. There is nothing there that you are afraid of, or maybe there is no potential for conflict of interest down the road. That is illegal in my institution. The fund is to be sent to the account of the faculty to avoid any suspicion of corruption. Thank you, Zaid, for sharing the comment. Usually, and I have some personal experiences with this situation. Sometimes the funding agencies requires opening a separate governmental account for separate projects, which means they don't want the funds of different projects to get mixed up together. It's not a personal account. You cannot open a personal account for yourself and to ask for the money to be deposited into. Here, what I meant here, probably I may have not stated that clearly, is sometimes universities might have a one collective account for all projects. All the funding is deposited to this account, and then they seek payments for different activities through that particular account. It's like a central, let's say, research project account for the institutions. Some funding agencies might not like that and might say, no, we don't want this fund to be put in an aggregated bank account. We want this to be in a separate bank account. Still, it's going to still be a governmental bank account under the under all the terms and the use terms of the institution. However, it is separate from all the other projects. I don't know if I have maybe responded appropriately to your comment or not. Please, if you still see that my feedback to your comment is not what you meant, well, great, thank you so much. So that means we are both on the same page. I'm not suggesting that you take the money yourself. I'm not suggesting that you put the money in a personal bank account. But I have one of the projects I'm involved in. The funding agency objected to having the money deposited to a collective or an aggregated research projects account that my university have, and they insisted on establishing a separate governmental bank account of a certain type with the central bank, not in one of the the other banks for the money to be deposited. So we have to meet the requirements there. We had to have some discussions with the host institution, leadership and financial department, and at the same time the funding agency. And at the end, we made sure that all the requirements are met, and the money is going to be deposited to a bank account that meets all the requirements for all parties involved. Great. Thank you so much for the comment, Zaid. With this, we made it to the end of our journey on writing agricultural grant proposals. We started the journey 4 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago actually, and we finished all four sessions. Please, if you have not done so already, please share your name, your email address, your institution's name, and affiliation in the chat section. We need these information to process your certificate and to send you the participation certificate. Any question or comment or feedback on any component of the entire series so far? Any comment or personal experience that you guys might want to share with us? Okay, well, that means I really thank you all so much for being with us throughout this series. Your certificates are gonna get processed and will be sent to you on your emails that you kindly provided us in the chat section. I would like to use this opportunity to invite you to join us in our next series. It is Navigation of International Publication. It is a series of 3 sessions. It is devoted to how to write manuscripts for publication in international journals. We break that journey down into 3 sessions. The first session, we're gonna discuss how to select the research topic and how to conduct the research topic in such a way that you produce some data that meets the requirements for international publication. In the second session, we will discuss how to write your manuscript in details. We're going to break the manuscript down into its components, and we will discuss the criteria for each component and what exactly the criteria expected for this particular section of the manuscript to be accepted for publishing in international journals. And the last session is gonna, or the third session is gonna be devoted to the review process, the submission and review process. We'll talk about the submission stage, the peer review process, types of peer review, different types of peer review, and different stages of peer review, different decisions that you receive during the peer review, different entities that you interact with, and different personnel that you interact with during the peer review, and how to respond to different, to reviewers, how to respond to the editors when you receive different types of decisions, and what is the best course of actions that would allow you to successfully navigate the peer review and get your manuscript accepted. And eventually we're gonna wrap the series up with how to maximize the impact of your manuscript after being accepted and published. So this series is gonna start next week in the same day and time. So next Tuesday at the same time, depending on your local time. And I hope we had, I believe, over 1,000 participants in this series over the last 2 rounds. From different parts of the world, and it will be our pleasure to have you participate in that series if you have not done so already. With that, I thank you all so much for your participation and for your attention. Please feel free to share any insight or feedback with us in the chat section or via email. It has been a pleasure to have you all with us, and please don't forget to put your information in the chat section so we could process your participation certificate. I'll stop the recording here in case anyone would like to share any feedback off record.